teach so much in the classroom, but by taking them outside of the classroom, there's so much more learning taking place.
Traditionally, law schools, meaning teach law of particular country, the home jurisdiction. That makes sense, of course. However, with the globalization, the challenge faced lawyers is they need an understanding of the transnational legal environment.
The very idea that when I take the students overseas and I spend time with them, get them to engage with communities, particularly disadvantaged ones, they learn to value what they have. They learn to accept and understand what may be missing in somebody else. And they get a very good understanding of cultural orientation, sensitivity. They come back enriched in terms of global connections that they have made.
And I think that it adds a totally different layer to the experience that students have when they get to go and see it in an international context. And also you have students who range in their experience.
Students who engage in this project, they know the benefit of being associated with the project, especially when they see the alumni people and when they rub shoulders with them. I was talking recently with one of our members who went with us to USA, and he was telling me that he has 2 job interviews in USA.
Coming from Fiji, I have had lots of experience living through cyclones and flooding because Fiji is prone to these. And I also wanted to test my students' ability to adapt to new situations, new environments, and see how they were able or how they would be able to practice journalism in a different setting, in a challenging setting.
We start the process at least 8 months before the tour. Normally, we put out the information to students about a year before, and then we come to call for express of interest about 8 months before, and we host the pre-departure program for them about 6 months, 5 to 6 months before.
Having done a few of the outbound mobility experiences, I start planning for the next one as soon as I get back. So essentially 12 months in advance.
Planning of projects takes a bit of time because I always want to do some meaningful projects, things that students can work on, engage with, and learn as well. So it's a give and take.
Start planning early, and if possible, to go there themselves before the experience and to test the environment. I mean, because now, after testing the environment, we have many things are going to change. We engage in the experience of risk assessment. And, you know, I mean, we use the risk assessment matrix, which is likelihood and severity and everything that goes really above law. Then we need to address that, and we need really to come up with ideas how to minimize the risk.
One of the requirements we have for the universities, we do a risk management assessment, and that takes in a whole range of things from, you know, students being late, missing planes, potential injuries, and all those sorts of things.
It is time-consuming, and I have put a lot of energy into it to ensure it runs smoothly. I have been very fortunate to have the support from international office during the process and to have the support from Australian government under the Colombo Plan Grant.
And I try and bring in some scenarios to say, if you missed a flight, what would you do? If you were left alone and it was late at night, what would you do? How would you connect?
You take a big responsibility. You are taking someone else's child along with you, and you're going into a high-risk zone, like, for example, going to Nepal, going to Fiji, and you can't compromise on risks as such, in terms of, yeah, okay, you know, you either take that risk or you just don't go there. It's a no-go zone.
What if this happens? We run a lot of worst-case scenarios, and we are prepared for many things. But things can happen that you haven't really accounted for, and that's what that's the density comes from there.
Pre-departure is in class. We do sort of 2 or 3 sessions of about 2 or 3 hours each, and they will involve me basically giving them some background to the country, introducing them to the places that we're going to go, the people we're going to meet, and getting them prepared and to do a bit of research on those venues and those people.
When we take students to overseas countries for immersion experiences, for example, we have weekly training sessions. We make them aware of things like, making sure they travel with a hat, say, for example, going to Fiji, even going to Nepal, tropical climate, if it's going to be very hot. Making sure that they have sunscreen, making sure they have proper shoes. Making sure that when we were traveling to Nepal, I had to tell them about, do little drills about being prepared for earthquakes, say, for example.
It's always good to have a conversation with students to say, have you been overseas or have you traveled by yourself? Talk about some things that you encountered, things that you probably did not think about.
We have to think about very small thing. For example, if anybody allergic to peanuts would be a major issue because virtually every dish in China have peanuts in it or peanut oil. So the small things can become a major issue.
In terms of preparing students for travelling in a new country, and quite often students haven't travelled to Asia even if they have travelled elsewhere, one of the biggest factors they have to adjust to is traffic, especially the number of motorcycles and the lack of road rules and things that exist in places such as Vietnam. How I handle that aspect of the travel is the students have to do a practical examination, basically.
The one thing that I found when students go to countries other than where I would say the Western part of the world, they find it challenging to see some issues about poverty, some issues associated to food, some issues associated with transport.
Probably the first thing is actually driving on the wrong side of the road, which was really challenging.
And the other challenges for us is the behavior of students because they are in a new environment. They got excited, they go out to drink, they have a lot of time to spend with other classmates, which they don't normally have in Sydney. So that posed a challenge as well for us to tell them, although they are not on our campus, their behavior, even when they are not in class, still governed by our policies.
This group of students went out one night and ended up eating lots of pizza, I think. And one of the students became really sick that she had to be hospitalized. And again, it may seem like a very small thing, but her condition had come about as a result of eating the cheese in the pizza that she had eaten. She was with a group of other students who were on the same tour, and the students took care of her. They knew what the emergency requirement was. They called the emergency number and they were told to take her to a particular hospital. It was for foreigners, I think, or travelers, and she got hospitalized. And I went and saw her the following morning. And I was so happy and glad that the students had the right training and they managed really well.
We got caught up in a political kind of an issue, which was demonetization of money, currency. And all the big notes that we had with us, every one of us was carrying those 1,000 rupee notes, 500 rupee notes. They were rubbished. So just imagine yourself. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I can never think of, that I'm carrying 20,000 rupees with me and I have no money now. And that money is paper. It's trash paper, Kleenex, you can throw it.
We had an incident last year because still under investigation. I'm not at liberty to discuss it. I would say the university have handled it extremely well, and I feel supported by our executive decisions.
These are young people full of life, full of energy, and they'd want to go out and party and socialize as well. And those are the things that we need to factor in while planning the trip and be aware that these are possibilities.
We arrange for the whole team to have first aid training.
Ask students to travel in groups rather than just be by themselves. So buddy up.
If people are going to undertake mobility programs, they need to look at it as a long-term involvement. It's I don't think it's fair on future students, on industry partners, and even on yourself just to say, I'm going to have a go at it, do it once, and then not continue.
There's a lot of common sense required, and sometimes common sense is lacking. Sometimes students, even journalists, practicing journalists, are not able to apply common sense. And it's only through constantly practicing or doing, similar to the practice of the trade itself. The more journalism you do, the better you get at it. And it's reflective process practice as well.
Whenever you see a toilet, use it. Don't wait for a time when you really want to use it. But when you see one, use one,
How do you cross the road? Basically, you just walk, you've got to pick your moment. And, once you decide that you're going to go, there's a general rule. Motorcycles will go around you, cars and buses will hit you.
I'd encourage every teacher to give this a go because, like I said earlier, this kind of learning environment, nothing compensates for this kind of learning environment. It's immersive.